Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Spiritual Spiral. I'm your host, Sam Davidson, and I have a very special episode for you all today. I'm joined by Ann Teato, who is an international psychic medium, tutor, writer, and a podcast host. She has an amazing show. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Sam. It's great to be here.
So I've listened to a lot of your episodes and just hearing about you, and I'd love for you to share with our audience how you kind of started tapping into your gifts as a child and how you kind of like slowly, progressed to the, person you are today with the gifts that you have.
Yeah, sure, of course. That's always very interesting, and I'm always interested to hear people's backstory as well. But for me, it was well, I guess I didn't really realize I had any gifts until it's hindsight when you look back and you think, oh, right, I see, I had that as a child. But I suppose one of my earliest memories was when I was in a pram. I was lying down, and my brother, who was a year older than me, was a toddler. He was sitting on top of the pram back in the 60s, people. And I just remember looking out and seeing the back of him and knowing that I knew more than I could express. I don't know, I can't really explain it. And then a little bit later, I was a couple of years old and I was sitting in a pushchair, and I remember some workmen coming up to me in the pushchair, and they were about to put on a pneumatic drill. And in fact, they did put on the pneumatic drill, and I knew that if they did that, I would cry. So it's almost like looking at myself from outside of myself and observing me as a child in the pushchair. Yeah, and not really understanding why they did that, knowing that I was a baby that would cry. I don't know, I just had a sort of bigger awareness of my own intelligence at that time. And then fast forward to 15, something like that, Sam, and I'd be go to school, and my school wasn't very far from where I lived. It was only a 10-minute walk, but I knew that I would meet certain people on the way. I knew who I would meet. I could name them. I could name if my brothers were playing table football, which they often did in their bedroom. I knew who was going to score, what the score would be, who would get the next goal, things like that. So, and then I was probably about 16. I started to see what I call shadow people, spirit people, really. But I was walking along with a boyfriend once upon a time, just coming back from town on a Saturday, having had a coffee, something very innocent. And we were just walking back, and I could see a bus stop in the distance. And I just said, oh gosh, look at those two old ladies at the bus stop. They're there every week. And he said, there's nobody there. And I was like, no, the tall, skinny one, and then the little one sitting down with the shopping bags. There's nobody there. There's nobody there. But I could see them so clearly. So things like that looking back, but I didn't really think anything of it at the time.
So when you were seeing what you call like shadow people, spirit, are those people that, are completely crossed over on the other side, or are those people that are like lingering kind of around still, and haven't crossed over fully yet?
Well, it's an interesting question, isn't it? So I believe what I was seeing were people who obviously had crossed over. They're dead people, spirit people, but that sometimes we can replay events, things that were meaningful to us for some reason. So I think sometimes we can, I don't know, I can't really explain it. I think there can be glitches in the matrix where we can get a glimpse of things, and ghosts and things like that are not a spirit person in that place. It's just a replay of events that happened there once upon a time.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
so when you connect though to spirit, you're obviously, talking to people that have crossed over on the other side. Like what is your method of doing that? How do you see them? Like how do you connect?
Yeah, again, another really good question, because if you don't work as a medium, it must be quite difficult to understand how that happens. So for me, it feels as if my mediumship changes over the years. It evolves every year into something different. So initially, it began by me feeling as if somebody came up behind me. You know, Sam, if somebody living walks up behind you, you can't see them, but you know they're there.
Yep.
And sometimes you can get a sense whether they're a male or a female if they're a living person. You sort of just get a kind of feeling. It was that sort of feeling as spirit came close. So I knew that there was a man that stood with me, a child that stood with me. And then what happens is you begin to see them in your mind's eye. You're aware of them in the sort of, for me, I'm aware of them out of the corner of my eye, like a shadow form, like I would, like, I'm not looking at you now, but I can see you out the corner of my eye. So I can't see the detail, but I know that you're a female with brown hair, sort of almost shoulder length. So it's that sort of thing. And as you bring them closer to you, you need to almost breathe and allow their energetic consciousness, their energetic body to blend with your energetic body. And then you become more and more aware of what their build was like. I knew, for instance, I did a demonstration of mediumship last week, and I knew that the lady that I was working with had had breast enhancement surgery because I could feel a difference within my energetic body. So you can pick up different things. I picked up people without a leg or a finger missing, things like that, because there's something just not quite right about the way that their body feels energetically when it blends with your energetic self.
That's it's funny because recently I've been corner of my eye, seeing like what's that, and I'm like, I think that's something, and I'll kind of look and I don't see anything, but I know something is there. But I think I've always been able to tap into things, but I have a lot of fear, and then it stops. And so the way that you connect, I mean, it sounds very personal and like intrusive of your space in some way. Like, how do you protect yourself? I mean, if you're really going to be like melting in with this other person, like, how do you know if their soul is pure and like that you're safe?
Good questions. Excellent questions. Well, if somebody comes to speak to us from the spirit realm, they always come with love. It's a place of love. They come with this most beautiful, loving energy. So there is nothing to fear. There's nothing to be frightened of. And if we think about where that fear comes from, it doesn't come from any excellent teaching that we've had about the spirit world. It comes from Hollywood scriptwriters or wonderful storytellers, but it doesn't come from the truth of what really happens. So the spirit world are just so loving and so beautiful. And of course, we open up our awareness, we open up our own love, our own soul to ask them to hold us with their soul. So it's a very loving, beautiful place in which to work, and it always feels really blissful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, because I've heard what you've said before, that you have a hard time watching certain like movies or TV shows, and oh my goodness, I grew up like attached to the television, you know what I mean? And it really is crazy how those outside influences, especially when you're young, can shape and influence you. I wanted to talk a little bit about being a psychic. So I know that not all mediums are psychics. And the psychic gifts, obviously, you talk about how we've seen the future. Are you able to predict your own future?
Personally, I find that quite a difficult concept, because there's so many parameters, there's so many different things that could happen in our future that by any decision we take today could radically alter our future. But there are certain things that will definitely take place. It was quite kind of hard to explain. I think there is definitely, we do have an ability to predict possible outcomes, for sure. That's definitely, if you take this course of action, then I really do feel that these will be the unfolding events that will happen. So you can give people options and choices.
Have you ever seen or heard of the movie? It's called Sliding Doors. It has Gwyneth Paltrow in it. I think it's a British movie, actually.
Yeah, I've never actually watched it. I've heard of it and lots of people have watched it, but I haven't managed to catch it yet.
Yeah, it shows her life, what would happen if she caught the train, and then what would happen if she missed it. And so you see both timelines go back and forth. One of them, she catches her boyfriend cheating on her and the whole trajectory of her life changes. She gets a new job. And then in the other one, she stays with him and is miserable. But it's those really small moments in life that could change everything. Do you ever think that by giving psychic readings, like, you could change, it's like someone's future? Like, do you think that it is ever toying with future? You know what I mean?
I don't think that we are blessed with that power to be able to alter anybody's future in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think there comes a great responsibility with a psychic or a medium to work in a very pure fashion and to be very, very careful with how they put information across. So I think we have a great responsibility in that sense.
Yeah, I think you definitely do, because a lot of people that have a fear, that have never gone to a psychic or a medium. And I have a lot of friends, I give them suggestions because I know so many people from my show, but they're like, are they going to tell me when I'm going to die? Like, are they going to tell me something bad? Do you think there are any psychics out there that just don't have those boundaries and will just like blurt out something that someone does not want to hear?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people in all kinds of different jobs out there,
Hmm.
that are not working in any job in the way that perhaps is the best practice for that job, for that role, for that career. So no doubt there are people like that out there. Yes,
Yeah.
and so we have to be very careful. We have to be very mindful of how we present information to people. So you have to tread very delicately. So, and also it's not for us to, I don't know, to give information. Sometimes the things that we pick up are not appropriate to say in the way that we feel them. I'll give you an example. So I was demonstrating mediumship once upon a time, and I was very aware of a gentleman who was standing with me, and I could see that he was soaking wet from his hair to his toes. He was dripping with water. Now, had I said to the lady I was working with, there's a gentleman here dripping with water standing next to me, that would have been awful. As I felt into the gentleman, started to work with him a little, I understood that he had passed away by falling off a boat.
Mm.
Um, but the way that I was able to present that to the lady was to say something along the lines of, I know this gentleman loved the water. I know he passes when he's out on his boat, and you would understand that he slips into the water, and that's how he transitions to the spirit world. That's a way of saying that information without saying, oh, there's a bloke here and he's soaking wet. Do you know what I mean? So, that would be awful. So we have to be very gentle, very sensitive about the way we give the information that we receive.
Hmm. And I also know that you talk about spirit animals, seeing animals that are on the other side. What is that like? And do you ever, connect with people's pets, or like, where are these animals coming from? Is it because they lived in that space, or yeah?
Yeah, so you can very easily pick up on the spirit or soul of an animal companion, very, very easily. And I have done that. I have bought through people's pets before. And sometimes you just aware as I explained a little earlier, where you start to move your awareness to spirit, you just become aware that it's not actually a person. It doesn't happen very often, but it does sometimes happen that you can be aware that there's a dog that stands with you, and you start working with the dog first, and then you start to bring through the gentleman that stands with the dog. So, or the cat or the parrot, actually, I bought through once for somebody. So it just depends, but you can very easily um, bring through information from animals. Absolutely.
I love that. And do you think animals ever come with you in other lives, like lifetimes, like in a past life they were your dog or something like that?
I haven't had that experience with my pets that I've had where I feel I've known them before, but I do know other people who feel that their pet has come back to them in their current lifetime. They've passed away, they've gone to the spirit world, and they feel that they've been reincarnated as the next dog. I do feel that is a very real thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so with world events, and I mean, obviously the past few years have been crazy, and a lot of light workers, said that they felt like 2 years ago, they felt something and they were seeing people working from home, or, their kids being homeschooled, but they weren't exactly sure what was going to happen. What were your feelings before COVID, like about 2 years ago? Were you picking up on anything was coming?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting feeling before COVID hit, because I remember saying to my daughter, I remember where I was. I stood in the kitchen in my flat in London. I was looking out of the window and I said, something's happened in the world and it feels massive and it feels awful, and it felt like it was approaching. Yeah, and I said, it doesn't feel like a war, and it doesn't feel like, I don't know, an explosion or anything like that, but it felt ominous and it felt energetically huge. And I knew that it was coming. That's all I could feel. I just knew something had shifted in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it
And
felt weird and not right.
are you feeling any better about our future?
Yeah, I feel very sunny about our future. Yes, I do.
It's
Very
been an
much so.
interesting time. I mean, I think as a light worker, people have been just more people have been interested in going to mediums or psychics because they're, maybe they're shifting their frequency. That's what, some people are saying, that we're kind of, a lot of us are raising our frequencies and are much more interested in this kind of work. I mean, have you noticed, even, with your teaching and all of that, that more people are coming around and are interested in it than they were before?
I don't think I've noticed that so much, really. In terms of new people, I know that a lot of my students that I'm teaching have been into their spiritual development for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
definitely pre-pandemic. So I haven't really noticed that, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not in my experience would be my answer.
But have you felt energetically like a shift at all, in the past couple of years, or have you just really felt like it's the same? I mean, because it's so hard, especially with us being isolated, and then kind of going out into the world. And I'm like, am I being like extra empathic right now, or is my body and mind just not used to being around people anymore? Because I personally have found that, I pick up on things at the grocery store, and, and it's very overwhelming. It's probably a combination of me learning more about spirituality, and also my body and my mind are just being like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I'm still so confused.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, because you've got this podcast and it's been going for a while now, and you're talking to all these people. So you are opening up your own awareness. So for sure, you're going to be becoming more open
Mm-hmm.
to these experiences and working with your own intuition and your psychic awareness. So you're probably much more heightened with your emotions, how you feel. But in terms of the world and how it feels at the moment, I definitely think something's going on where it does feel as if we as a community, global community, are becoming so much more aware of what to say what's important in life seems like a cliche, but what we're here for. And we all have learned, I feel, through the pandemic, that love really does make the world go round. And love of our families, who we were all disconnected from for so long, still are in some cases, and community, and how important mankind is to mankind. And so I think there's a global shift there on looking after each other and looking after the planet on which we live. I think the two go hand in hand.
And I wanted to learn a little bit about all of your training. You've gone to these really cool schools, and it sounds like, Harry Potter or something. I love it. Like, and you were very drawn to this work. And I know a stranger like approached you and said that you should, take a class from this person and that you were gifted. So the College of Psychic Studies, like, what are these schools like? Like, what are the classes like?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's funny to think that people don't know what they're like or what they are, but
Mm,
they're open, especially now because we are now a global community of people in the world with Zoom, and we can all join in. So many of these classes are available to your listeners online.
mhm.
So the College of Psychic Studies has been around for 100 years, I feel,
Wow.
possibly longer than that. And it's a beautiful place of psychical research and psychic awareness and mediumistic studies and healing. It's a very big healing college, and it's based in Kensington in London. And they hold all kinds of classes in all kinds of topics. It's open to absolutely anybody who wants to go and learn with them. And they employ some incredible tutors in all kinds of different topics of spirituality and areas that you can go and learn with. So that's a beautiful place, and any one of your listeners can look it up online and go online. And then there's the Arthur Finley College, which of course is just the most beautiful place for spiritual development. It does look like Hogwarts a little bit. People do say that's a beautiful old house in a place called Stansted Mount Fitchett. Close to Stansted Airport, actually, but far enough away that you're not bothered by the air traffic. It's lovely and peaceful there. And they have the best tutors in the world teaching the classes for psychic development, but a lot and mostly for mediumistic development. So
Mm.
if you want to go and try those classes, I do believe they're also offering some things online. Actually, I'm not sure, but maybe look it up. But you can go there. So you go there for a week, and it's exhausting. You can work from 9 o'clock in the morning. So you get up, you have breakfast. It's residential, so you stay upstairs in the beautiful, so clean, it's so beautiful, it's beautifully kept. And you can share, I don't know what it's like now with the pandemic and new regulations, but you used to be able to share a dormitory with 2 or 3 other people. It's just a bedroom, basically. And then you come down to breakfast. So you get all your food. You get the most delicious food, absolutely lovely. Then you go into your classroom at 9 o'clock, and you will start with probably a meditation of some sort to do what we call sitting in the power of your own soul self. And then you'll move into your workshop groups with your tutor. So there might be 4 tutors per course. So you get broken up into little groups, and you go off and you work on various exercises that you're set. So, for instance, you might work with somebody. If you're doing a mediumship course, you might be paired off with somebody in your group, and you would sit and you would try to bring through someone from the spirit world for your fellow classmate who sits opposite you in these beautiful rooms of the Arthur Finley College. And then you swap over, and then you all come back together as a group. We do a Q&A, and we talk about the experience,
Mhm.
things like that. Then you have lunch, then you go again in the afternoon, then you have supper, then you come back down and you work until 9 o'clock. It's hard work. It's a lot of work, but it's brilliant.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah, it really
Sounds.
is. It's really beautiful there.
And so one of the things that you talk about is called scrying. And I would love to hear more about that and for you to tell our audience what that is, how you do it.
Yeah, so scrying's my passion. I absolutely love scrying. We've got some workshops coming up for scrying, actually, if anybody's interested. But basically, it's using your psychic awareness to move the conscious mind to one side so that you can bring through images, symbology, maybe fragrance, using all of your senses. So we've got our sight, sound, taste, smell, touch. So you're using all those in a clairvoyantly. So or using your clairvoyance, your clairsentience, which is your feeling, all your different senses, to feel into and pick up information from something. So, say for instance, you might scry by using I don't know, here's a piece of paper on my desk. I might crumple it up. Here we are, crumple, and then open it out. And then I might have a look at the shadows that form on that piece of paper and the crumples in that piece of paper. And they will inform me perhaps about your life, Sam, to say what might be going on for you at this time. And so I would be softening my gaze as I look at that piece of paper, that crystal ball, that mirror, whatever you're using as your focus, your psychic tool to focus. And then you soften your gaze and you just allow things to touch the mind, images that might come or feelings that I have about what might be going on for you at this time.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool. I feel like what else could you use besides like
You
paper or
Yeah, you can use paper, you can use the wall, you can use this curtain that I'm staring at, which has loads of flowers on it. I often do scrying when I think I mentioned this in one of my podcast episodes, where I sit in the jacuzzi after I've had a swim and I stare out the window and I look at the trees and the way that the leaves move with the breeze. And by looking at the tree, I can start to see forms of images. Sometimes I might see a castle or a let me see now. If I do it right now, I'm just looking at some Venetian blinds that are drawn right in front of my face. So as I stare at those blinds, the first thing I'm drawn to is as I stare at it, I see two eyes looking back at me, which then become a face, which becomes a mouth, which becomes the face of a lady. She looks like a grandmother with her hair in a bun, and so on and so forth. And you just start to see images and perceive things from any spot that you start to stare at. But if you stare trying to look for something, you'll see nothing. So you have to soften your gaze, disassociate the conscious mind, and go back into the daydream state, really. You know, the teachers used to tell you off, and they were always telling me off, stop daydreaming, Theato, come back into the space. um, but that beautiful daydream state where you just feel very peaceful, almost half asleep, that's the sweet spot for scrying. Yeah, so you
it's
could use
yeah.
a crystal ball, a bowl of water, a mirror, anything, absolutely anything, a tarot card you could look into.
Yeah, so it's like almost getting into a meditative state. What advice do you have for people that have a difficult time getting into a meditative state? Like for me personally, I try and I try and then I give up and then it becomes a chore, which
Hmm.
is the opposite of what it should be. And I feel like for me there has to be like another solution. Like
Yeah.
I'll still meditate, but it's not the way that most people would meditate, whether it's just like drawing lines on the like, I have a I'm working from home obviously and I have a pad of paper next to me and I just like sometimes it's like
Yeah.
if I was in elementary school and they're like stop doodling,
Yeah.
stop daydreaming. And so, and I heard people say, if you clean, sometimes you get into that just into a zone. But yeah, what advice do you have for people that really struggle getting into that zone?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do struggle getting into that zone for sure. And what you're doing there, what you're describing about moving your pen back and forth across the piece of paper, that's basically you, I feel, trying to still your mind just to bring the vibration down a little bit from the
Mm.
busy, busy mental state. And that's what we try to do as psychics. The whole key is to still the mind so that you can put it to one side and be open to receive things through your own psychic awareness, or if you're working mediumistically, from spirit world, who will put images into your mind. How do you do that? I think there are three different things that we can do. Meditation, sitting in meditation, is a great thing. That will help you to still the conscious mind. It will help you to relax. It will help you to be calm. It will help your mind to begin to be a little more peaceful, so that your thoughts are not so intrusive all the time. And I don't think that you can stop well, I know you can't stop your thoughts coming. They will always come. But if you can get to a place where the thoughts can come and then just go off again, so oh, dinner's coming, I've got to cook a burger in a minute. Okay, let me just move that to one side. and refocus on my breathing. Let me just refocus. What happens is you start, as you do things like focusing on the breath, you become the observer of the breath rather than being so inside the conscious mind, so very, very present with your thoughts worrying you all the time. You begin to be the soul that watches the body breathing. So that's what meditation will do for you. And that is really good. And that will help you still the mind. Walking, very good, excellent. Just trying to just walk and get into that state where you're not thinking. But you must walk without your phone, checking Facebook every 5 minutes or trying to take a photograph or something or being busy.
Mhm.
We're so addicted. We've been taught so well by those wonderful people who created smartphones to use the smartphone all the time that we can't be still. And so there's a great discipline in putting time aside to be still. And then there's guided meditation, which is something different. So that's somebody guiding you along an experience. So, say for instance, oh, you're walking along a path in a forest, and here's a sunbeam, and here's some leaves, and you can hear the water trickling. That's all beautiful as well. And that is also another way of stilling the mind. But to work with your psychic awareness, you need to really be sitting in the power of your own soul. And that's something different to being in a meditative. It is a meditative state, but it's something different. You need to be becoming so aware that you are not a human being, that you are so much more than, you are the light, you are the energy of you, expanding it and making it so beautiful and bright and big, and just expanding outwards and being soft, so soft and just present. And that is really sitting in the power of you. That way, when you come to work with your piece of paper, your psychic tool, you're looking at the clouds to see what you can scry, what information you can pick up, then you're in a very receptive space in order to work.
That's it, the clouds. When I was younger, when I imagined what God looked like or what heaven was like, it was a cloud. He was a cloud, God. And I would just love staring at the clouds. It's so funny. It's like I just kind of remembered that. But I feel like I've been doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And to see like what shapes you see, what, signs and messages. Yeah, I think it's a really cool practice, and to just be just aware of it. And there's so many things around you that you can discover. And I mean, nature, I know that you've also talked about, we spend almost all of our time inside, and that's not what
Yeah.
we were really meant to do, right? I mean, back hundreds of years ago, do you think people were a lot more connected spiritually because of all the work they did outside and just experiencing world and life in a different way?
Yeah, for sure, definitely, because we were so much more in touch with ourselves, and there was not so much to keep our. Well, there wasn't a television, there wasn't, the distractions of things in the house. We were so much more connected to each other because we spoke to each other. We used to go and actually meet each other and work next to each other and share our life, share our stories, share our self with other people. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Um, Whether we were more spiritually connected, hard to say, but I would imagine because of that, we probably were.
hmm Have you touched into your past lives at all?
Yes, I'm a past life regression therapist. So
hmm
I have sat with and done several, well, quite a few, many hundreds of past life regression sessions for other people and for myself. People have done them with me. Yeah, and it's very, very interesting where you can go. And it was through that work that I discovered that you can not only go to the past and obviously can go to future lives, but you can also go to the spirit world and meet those people who you have truly loved in this lifetime and have a beautiful 3 dimensional, 4 dimensional experience with them where you can hold them again and sit with them again. And that is the work that I'm really, really interested in. And those, I call them time travel readings. So I
Mm,
take people to the spirit world to meet their loved ones. It's beautiful.
that's really cool. And I know you shared a story which was so interesting, how when one of your kids was like a young child, that she said, do you remember when we died together?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And
my
so
daughter.
so you had you known, had you picked up on that you two had been in a prior life together before she said that?
So I didn't think that at all. I knew when I was pregnant with her that this was a very special, I don't know, we all think our babies are special. Of course we do. You know, it's beautiful being pregnant. Um, but I felt somehow eh, that I was going to be reconnected in some way. I don't know. In hindsight, I feel that perhaps not at the time. I don't think I felt that at the time. I do remember when she was born, she was lying in her little Moses basket next to my bed because, you know, you don't want to roll over and crush your baby, do you? So you put them in a
Yeah.
little tiny little basket next to the bed because they're always on and off the breast trying to feed every 5 seconds. And she was in there after a little feed. And I was just lying there. And I remember so distinctly my spirit or soul rising up out of my body and joining hers, which was above her Moses basket, and both of us having this beautiful, joyful dance within the air above where we were both. Our human bodies were resting, but this beautiful joy at being reconnected.
Mm,
That was one of the most moving things that has ever happened to me in my lifetime. So,
wow.
and I went to a psychic about some sadness that had happened to me. I went, "Oh, let me go and find a psychic, right?" So I went to the psychic, and he said to me, "You and your daughter have shared a lifetime together before." And I thought, well, that kind of makes sense because I had that experience. And he said, "Watch out for her saying about the lady at the top of the stairs." I was like, okay. I never said a word. I forgot about it. I went about my business. And when she was 3 or 4 maybe, she just one day said, Mummy, I've been talking to the lady at the top of the stairs. I nearly fell over backwards. What? Couldn't believe it. And then it was at that time then she started to say, yeah, she talks to me all the time. And she said that, and she just came out with it one day where she just said, do you remember when we died together, Mummy? And I said, did we, darling? What happened? She said, well, all the houses fell down and there was a big fire. It was just astonishing. I was like, wow.
Who is that lady? What, is she a spirit guide of hers, or?
Yeah, I don't know. She's spoken about her since, and I feel from descriptions that possibly she's a great grandmother of mine from a family photograph that I've got on my mother's side of the family. From the description, it sounds like her. But my daughter seems to feel that she's just a random lady that comes to see her from the spirit world.
Wow, that's so interesting. And
Yeah.
just one more thing I have to ask you before I let you go. I've always thought about this. Timelines and time has always just been very interesting and confusing to me. So you said that you're able to pick up on past lives that are technically like in the future, like that have, because I mean, I know that time really is just like a social construct that we created, a very kind of like three-dimensional thing, but you always imagine past lives. Okay, so this was the 1800s, or 1930, but you can pick up on lives that are what, like thousands of years in the future. Like, how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've when you would you call it regressing someone, but obviously they're progressing really.
Hmm.
But you put them into a state of beautiful deep meditation or hypnosis, if you like, and then you lead them through and you help them to go to a lifetime in the future simply by saying, "You will now uh, imagine yourself in one of your future lifetimes." Um, there's a process, but that's what
Hmm.
happens. And then you say, describe what you're seeing. Where are you? What are you wearing? Who are you with? I've had people that have been in, in the pub up the road or in an office or something very sort of what we might perceive to be quite normal in their future lifetime, or some people that have gone to other planets
Mhm.
This is not Earth. This is a place called, I don't know, and they've named the name, they've said the year
Oh,
that it is, that the Earth doesn't exist anymore, that this has happened and that's happened, and we now communicate not with our voices, just with our minds. It's all telepathic. It's ever so interesting. Yeah, it's
wow.
fascinating, fascinating work.
That is fascinating. Well, thank you so much. You're very fascinating. Your work is
Mhm.
fascinating. I appreciate you taking the time. Please let my audience know where they can find you and if you have any classes or workshops coming up.
Oh, that's so nice of you, Sam, to say that. Thank you very much. Well, if anybody would like to find me, you can go to my website. It's got everything on there that I'm up to, and that is annteato.com. So that's ANNTheato.com. And the one thing I do have coming up is a scrying course. It's 6 weeks. It will probably continue throughout the year. So if you can't make those first 6 weeks, do email me, let me know, and I can put you on the list for further down the line. But we're going to be exploring all kinds of ways to scry using wax and treacle and water and all these different methods. So it's going to be very experiential and very interesting. So do come along to that. And the other thing you might be interested in is a channeling workshop that I'm doing with the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Centre online, and that is in the month of March. So it's 2 hours a week on Mondays. So it's 7 to 9 UK time. So that would be, is that 2, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3? Yeah, 2 to 4 EST.
Yes, please, everyone, make sure to check Anne out. She's fantastic. And follow us on Instagram at Spiritual Spiral Show. Please rate, review, subscribe. I love hearing your feedback, and we'll see you soon.